Hello. In this session, we will look at some of the important land revenue settlements during British time. Okay, so you might have heard of quinquennial settlement or permanent settlement and then zamindari settlement. Okay, so all these things we'll be discussing in detail. In fact, the 5-year settlement or the 1-year settlement which was introduced by Lord Warren Hastings, we have covered under Lord Warren Hastings. And then the permanent settlement or the zamindari settlement we have covered under Lord Cornwallis. But let me give you a quick discussion of this permanent settlement first. Then I will move on to Ryotwari settlement and Mahalwari settlement. I'm not discussing the quinquennial settlement here, or I'm not going to discuss the settlements which were introduced by Lord Warren Hastings, which was not that important because those were just trials. Okay, and we have discussed when we discussed about Lord Warren Hastings, his period in history is known as trial and error period, right? And we have seen he was introducing 5-year settlement, and when it was a failure he introduced it as 1-year settlement where the peasant will pay tax to the zamindar and the zamindar will pay to the state. Why it was a failure is basically because the zamindar was elected or selected through the process of bidding. And what happened is during the time of bidding, zamindars used to quote some unrealistic amount which they will not be able to pay in reality. So the state cannot implement any of its decision as per the plans that they made by expecting this revenue. Okay, so that was a problem, and that problem is solved through permanent settlement. Lord Cornwallis and John Shore. Okay, Cornwallis and John Shore, and John Shore is the next Governor General after Lord Cornwallis. Okay, it was introduced in 1793. So if you look at Lord Cornwallis and the reforms introduced by him, everything has actually happened in the year of 1793, right? So whatever is important for us or whatever is important from our exam point of view, like civil service reforms or police reform or judicial reform or the permanent settlement, everything is actually happening in 1793. Okay, so permanent settlement introduced in 1793 by Lord Cornwallis and John Shore. And in which areas? See, when you know that it is introduced by Lord Cornwallis, we know that he is the Governor General of Bengal. Okay, so obviously it will be introduced in that area. So Bengal comprise of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Now this was also introduced in some parts of Tamil Nadu and Banaras. Okay, so some parts of Tamil Nadu and Banaras also. Okay, but predominantly if you see, it is in the eastern part of India. So when I say zamindari settlement or the permanent settlement, it was introduced by Lord Cornwallis and it was in the eastern part of India. So if you ask me what was in southern part or central part, I will come up with Ryotwari settlement. Then if you ask me what was in the northern part or the western part, I will come up with Mahalwari settlement. Okay, we will discuss in detail about all these settlements, but here we are talking about permanent settlement introduced by Lord Cornwallis and John Shore in Bengal. That means Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and some parts of Tamil Nadu and Banaras. It comprises of around 19% of British India. Okay, so how much area? It was around 19% of British India. Okay. Now, what was the setup? The setup was something like this. The peasant or the actual cultivator or the subtenant or the sharecropper, in whichever name you call, okay, the actual cultivator will pay the tax to the zamindar and the zamindar will pay it to the state. Okay, so this is the condition. And zamindar became the owner of the land. Okay, so the ownership was given to the zamindar. But when you talk of this ownership is not absolute ownership. See, if you see between peasant versus zamindar, zamindar is the owner. So if the peasant is not able to pay the tax in the proper time which is mentioned, okay, the zamindar have all the right to evict the peasant, and that means new peasant can come into existence of the place of old peasant, okay, if he is not able to pay the tax. But again, if you see the ownership, if it is between zamindar and state is the owner. So the thing which zamindar did to the peasant, exactly the same thing can be done by the state to the zamindar also. And they introduced a law in 1794 which is known as sunset law. Under this law, okay, sunset law, and under this law, if the zamindar is not able to pay the collected amount or the tax to the state before the date fixed and before the sunset, the zamindar will be evicted by the state, and instead of him, new zamindar will come and take that position. Okay, so zamindar and state is the owner, peasant and zamindar is the owner. The point is, ownership is given to the zamindar, but it's not absolute ownership. Okay, now when we discussed about Lord Warren Hastings' time, I told you many people were aspiring to become zamindars because you used to get the power of policing. But during this time, I have already discussed, when we discussed about Lord Cornwallis in 1793, there was police reforms. So police officials were appointed, police stations were established, police station will be headed by Daroga, number of police stations together form a circle and will be headed by superintendent of police. So basically after police reforms, zamindars lost the power of policing. But then why they are looking for the zamindariship? Now what the zamindar is going to get is 9% of the collected amount. Okay, and the 91% will be given to the state, 9% for the zamindar. Now how much amount will be collected? That is the most important point here. See, as its name indicates, this is permanent settlement. The tax is permanently settled on the base year. Okay, the rate is considered on the basis of 1790. So whatever is fixed in the year 1790 as the tax, okay, keeping that as the base year, now you fixed the revenue. That means permanently settled. Okay, that's why we call it as permanent settlement. So 1790, on the basis of 1790, you fixed the amount as tax, and 1791, 92, 93, 94, now onwards you are going to pay the same amount. So compared to 1795 and 96, even in case of an increase in production, still you pay the same tax in 94 and 95. Okay, so again it is continuing like that. The amount which is fixed on the base of 1790 is what you're going to pay. That's why permanent settlement. I hope this is clear. Okay, so you fixing a tax, out of the collected amount, 1/11 will be given to the zamindar as the commission for collecting the tax, and out of the collected amount, 10/11 will be given to the state, and that's what exactly I have discussed here in terms of percentage. So I hope this is clear for you. So why zamindar is working? Zamindar is working for this 9% or this 1/11, the commission that he is getting. But whether he is satisfied with the commission or not, or whether he charged more from the peasant, we'll see that. Okay, that's the point of discussion today. Okay, so when we discuss about the consequence, you will understand it in a much better way. Now, so these are the facts which is related to permanent settlement introduced by Lord Cornwallis and John Shore in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and some parts of Tamil Nadu and Banaras. It comprised of around 19% of British India. British India means if this is India, some areas were remained as princely states. So this was British India. Okay, so British India means where they have administrative control. Now the system was like this: peasant or the actual cultivator or the sharecropper will pay to the zamindar, who is the owner of the land. He in turn will pay to the state, and zamindar will get the commission of 1/11 of the collected amount, and you will have to pay 10/11 of the collected amount to the state. Okay, in terms of percentage, it is 9% and 91%. So we have also discussed about sunset law, which was introduced in the year 1794. So I hope this fact are clear for you. You can expect a prelims question from this. And now we look at the mains question. You will be asking about the consequences or the impact. Okay, so let's quickly discuss about the consequences of this permanent settlement. Most of the consequences that we are going to discuss here will be the same which we are going to write in case of Rayotwari settlement and Mahalwari settlement, except one or two. And I tell you what is that one or two, and that's the most important consequence that we need to write if the question is asked on permanent settlement. Okay, so the first point that I need to write as consequence, so consequences, the first point is, even though the tax is fixed on the basis of 1790, that in itself was very high. Okay, so the taxation was very high, so you can write it as high rate of taxation, high rate of taxation. Okay, now see, you are supposed to pay around 60 to 70% of the producer's tax, and don't forget it excludes the amount of cost price like the sowing cost and the seed and the fertilizers, irrigation, everything. So you may end up paying 80 to 85% as the tax, and hardly you will left out with 10 to 15%, and which is very small amount. So the first problem or the most important point under consequence is the taxation was very high. Okay, now the second point when you discuss, see, if there is a crop failure, but still you need to pay the tax. Okay, so in some cases there may be crop failure, there may be issues related to the climate. Okay, so you may not be able to produce more, so you may not be able to pay the tax. And the peasant, he don't want to lose the land, so what he do is he will try to borrow money from some others. Okay, so a group of people have seen this as a great opportunity, and we call them as money lenders or mahajans. So money lenders or mahajans started entering into the rural area by seeing this opportunity, and they started lending money to the peasants or the sharecroppers at a very high rate of interest. Okay, so you can write another point of money lenders emergence or mahajans. Okay, so emergence of money lenders, and they charge very high rate of interest, and most of the time the peasant will not be able to pay. Next year, even if they manage to get some produce, they will have to pay to the money lenders. So obviously what happened is you will not be able to pay tax at least in the next year, and you will have to surrender your land to the zamindar. Okay, so what will happen is you lose your land because of the high rate of interest. So you will lose land, and when you lose land, what will happen is now you will have to undertake agricultural labor, or you'll have to undertake some agricultural activity for others for the survival, right? So this led to a lot of rural landless laborers. Okay, I just write like this: rural landless laborers. And see, if you see earlier, let's suppose this much amount of land, 5 people were working. Now there is availability of more landless laborers, so now 10 people are working in the same amount of land. This led to decrease in productivity, and you can also call it as a situation of unemployment or underemployment or disguised unemployment or whatever it is. And eventually this led to a situation of poverty and deprivation. Okay, so all these things, unemployment, you can club together. So these are the impacts of permanent settlement. Now if you look at from other side, okay, if you look at from other side means if you look at from the side of the zamindar. See, if the zamindar versus state, who is the owner? State is the owner of the land. So if the zamindar is not able to pay, what will happen is instead of him, a new zamindar will come. Okay, okay, so now if you look at this situation, the first zamindar may be originally from rural area, and he may be knowing the rural conditions very well, rural equations and everything. Okay, but the new zamindar who's coming in his place may be looking only for that commission, and he may be an urban merchant or he may be a businessman, so he is just looking after the commission and he is taking up the zamindariship. Okay, and most of the time he may not be present in the rural area. So this led to a situation which we call as absentee landlordism, and absentee landlordism is a very specific and typical feature of permanent settlement. So if you get a question on permanent settlement and the impact, you must have to write about absentee landlordism. Okay, so one of the most important impact you can see is absentee landlordism. Absentee landlordism. Okay, now if you look at this person is absent, so he will have to appoint some other person to collect revenue, right? So what he will do is he will appoint another person, let's suppose zamindar 2, to collect tax, and what he will say is, okay, I'll get 9%, so I'll keep 5 and I'll give you 4%. Okay, so this person may also not be interested in go to rural area, so he may appoint another person like zamindar 3, and he will offer that person, out of this 4 he will pay 2%. He may appoint another person zamindar 4 and he will offer 1%. He even appoint another person zamindar 5 and 0.5%. Okay, so if let's suppose the state is asking you to collect 100 rupees, okay, so out of the 100 rupee, 9% is for zamindars and 91 for state. So you have to give it to state 91, then rest of the 9 you will have to share. So the last person will get 0.5, that means 50 paisa. But he will not be satisfied with that. What he'll do is he'll charge more and more and more from the peasant. Okay, so now if you see this situation, let's suppose first year and second year. First year, let's consider the situation, your production was 2000. Next year production has increased to 4000. Okay, and you're paying tax. Okay, so this is the production, and you're paying tax as 1000, and we know that it is fixed, so this year also it is the same. So what is left out? In the first year you are left out with 1000, in the second year you are left out with 3000. Okay, so you may think that peasant is getting 2000 extra, but effectively it is not actually happening, because even from this zamindar may charge 2000 more, so effectively he is getting 1000 itself, or even less than that. But this extra amount that he charged 2000, okay, it is not involved in any calculation, and he is not going to pay to the state. Obviously he is asked to collect 1000, so out of 1000, 91% means 910 is what you're going to pay to the state, 90 you can keep it with you, and 90 is what you are supposed to keep with you, but what you'll do is you'll charge 2000 more, and effectively what you have left out is 2090. So you are getting 2090, you are paying the state 910, and the peasant, poor peasant, left out 2000. So who is getting the advantage? It is a zemindar who is getting the advantage. Neither the state nor the peasant is getting the advantage in this situation, and that was the most important problem of permanent settlement. And you can also write this as one of the impact that this led to a lot of exploitation of peasants by the zemindar. Okay, exploitation. Okay, now why this exploitation is happening? Because there is a chain of intermediaries. So this you can write as a specific feature of permanent settlement. Okay, so exploitation and chain of intermediaries. Chain of intermediaries. Okay, so these two are very specific feature of permanent settlement. Other things that we have discussed here: high rate of taxation, money lenders, losing land, rural landless labor, poverty deprivation, absentee, unemployment, underemployment, disguised unemployment, exploitation, everything you can see in other settlements also. Okay, but these two are very specific to permanent settlement, and that's the most important point which I need to discuss here. So I hope you are very clear with permanent settlement now. Let's move on to the next settlement, that is